Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Mattel release, and not just any release, we've got ourselves some more Chaos Theory figures, which is really exciting. Today we are checking out the Darius Adventure Pack, and as you can see, this pack features obviously the adult version, or at the very least older version, of Darius, as well as a Stygimoloch. We've got a Carnotaurus and a Dimorphodon in here. And they all look very, very cool, specifically that Carnotaurus. I'm so excited to pop out and take a look at. Obviously, we've got like the window area here in the front of the packaging, the Allosaurus and Darius down here to the left. And if we turn the package around and take a look at the back, we can basically see the back just shows us everything that is included in this set currently. So let's pop this box open and check it out. So we've got ourselves the Stygimoloch, which is in a really cool greenish color scheme this time around, which I am actually a pretty darn big fan of. I actually like this Stygimoloch a whole lot more than I was expecting to. I almost felt like that one was like an afterthought when it comes to this set. One figure for me, at the very least, that is, I would say, an afterthought would be the Dimorphodon, but the Dimorphodon does actually seem like maybe it's a bit larger than the older ones. I'm not entirely sure about that. It's just been a little while, I think, since I had one of the older Dimorphodons in hand, but there just seems like there might be something a little different about that one. We also, of course, have our Carnotaurus, which I am super, super excited about, and obviously this time we have ourselves a female version with the reddish-brown color scheme, which also looks really good on the Carno. And then we have Darius, of course, with this very interesting sort of net-like weapon that he's got going on here. Looks like he's got some rubber bands around him as well still, so we'll pop those off. Oh, it's trapped around his arm. Okay, well, let me get those off really quick, and then we're going to go ahead and jump straight to a closer look at everything included in this set. So first of all, we've got ourselves the Dimorphodon. Now, if you are wondering if this is a new sculpt compared to the older one, it definitely is. As you can see, there is a massive difference in size. Well, maybe not massive, but definitely a very obvious difference in size between the older Dimorphodon and this newer one. I don't know if sculpt-wise they're all that different. I mean, they definitely look pretty different, actually. Yeah, I would say definitely different sculpts, potentially all over the place, so that's pretty cool. So again, if we start here in the head sculpt of the Dimorphodon, it looks really quite nice. We've got some nice looking skin texture here. You have kind of like a darker green tone for the primary body color, but then we've got some brown that kind of runs up there around the eye socket up toward the nostrils of the Dimorphodon. You could see a yellow eye given a nice black pupil. Of course, we've got ourselves, if I can get it, an articulated jaw. We've got a nice look at the teeth. The teeth look okay. Again, they're nothing really all that incredible. There's no upgrades made to the teeth of the Dimorphodon like there has been for some other Mattel figures recently, like the Wild Roars and stuff. But they look okay for what they are. They're painted with sort of like a light yellowish tone. On the inside of the mouth, you can see a tongue sculpted out in here. It is painted with a pinkish tone. No paintwork for the upper side of the inside of the mouth, though, unfortunately. The jaw works pretty nicely. You can see it's a little wonky, but not too bad. We do have neck articulation, which can go up and down for the Dimorphodon, which is nice. I don't know if we can swivel. Yes, we absolutely can. So we've got the ability to swivel and kind of lean it in opposite directions, which is really cool. Definitely some nice articulation. No straight up left and right turning, but pretty decent neck articulation as a whole in that area. You again can see the skin texture looks really quite nice there. The throat here on the underside of the Dimorphodon as well. And then as you lead up here into the back of our pterosaur, you can see we've got some pycnofibers, and I actually like the fact that the pycnofibers run down here along the back, along the spinal column. You can still see some ridges poking out right there, but you can also see the pycnofibers actually run out toward the wing a little bit, out into the early stages, the early parts of the wing. We do still actually see that, but you can see there is kind of like a speckling with like almost the same yellowish tone that we see for the teeth. You can see it kind of running through the wing there, but you can see the fingers up here are nicely sculpted, and the nails have a glossy look to them, but no actual paintwork for the nails. But I love, as you lead out here into the wing, first of all, the skin texture looks absolutely awesome out here. But you can see little tears and stuff within the skin of the wings, so that's really cool. Nice doses of realism that I really enjoy. The wings are also really heavily curved for this Dimorphodon, a lot more so than we had seen on the older Dimorphodons. If you look at it from the front, you can really see how curved the wings are. And again, if you look at the older Dimorphodon, the wings were kind of spread out more, so definitely a pretty big difference when it comes to the overall visual of the wings. Pretty much the same thing you're going to see over here on this side when it comes to the wing. Again, bent the same way, still has some tears and stuff. Really, like I said, nice doses of realism. Might as well pop the fax app code here open, just so you can add this one to your collection if you would like. Again, it's up there on the back. And then you lead out here, you've got a nice curve, nice bend to the tail as you lead out. And then, of course, that classic ending here to the tail of the Dimorphodon, which looks pretty decent. I don't know if we have articulation in the tail. Kind of looks like we should, but I don't think it really moves. You do, of course, have the ability to swivel the wings all the way around. And then, of course, up and down so that the Dimorphodon can flap the wings as well. As you lead down into the legs, you can also see the legs are articulated forward and back. They do articulate together, so unfortunately, they don't articulate, on their own individually. They are sculpted pretty nicely. You can see the toes are sculpted nicely. Again, the nails look okay, no paintwork. Doesn't even actually look like we really have a gloss coat for the nails down here on the feet, which is weird when we had it up there on the fingers. But as you lead along the underside here of the wing, you can see we've got a darker tone that kind of follows along the upper part of the wing, and then kind of like a yellowish tone for the lower part. And that looks pretty cool. I also like the fact that they've allowed the primary body color to sort of creep through some of the areas of the yellow and stuff, just, adding a little bit extra, I think, to the coloration of the Dimorphodon. So in what was originally a figure that I felt like I would almost just glance over because I thought it was just a straight up repack with new paint apps, it's actually an entirely new figure, and I would say definitely better than the older Dimorphodons. So the fact that the Dimorphodon is a new figure kind of raises the question as to whether the Stygimoloch is a new figure, and I don't think it is. I think it's the same one that we've had, and if we bring up the older one and kind of put the two together, definitely looks the same to me. The legs are in the same position. The tail, yeah, looks like it has the same bend. The body has the same kind of bend to it. So I think the Stygimoloch is the same figure, just a new paint variant. I think looking at it, one of the only things I noticed that is definitely different as far as the overall figure goes, besides the paintwork, is the fact that the arm articulation, of course, works forward and back, but doesn't come out away from the body, whereas it used to come out away from the body. But you can see the head sculpt now sports a nice greenish tone, and as does pretty much the entire body. We have another variation of a brown, just like the other one we saw a brown kind of lead through the eye. We have the same thing going on here with the Stygimoloch. You can see it kind of leads up toward the nostrils and just kind of like splatters through the face. We do have a alternate tone of color up here, like almost a variation of a brownish gray for the dome of our Stygimoloch, and you can see a gray here for the spikes leading off of the back of the head, which is pretty nice to see those painted. The eye is painted with a nice glossy black, and that is it. No other coloration for the eye. And again, the beak as well is, painted with that grayish tone, which looks pretty cool. Kind of looks like, yes, we definitely have a speckling through the course of the figure here. You can see kind of like a greenish speckling, an alternate tone of green than what we have for the rest of the body. Of course, you can articulate the neck of the Stygimoloch, swivels all the way around and leads up and down, so you can get a nice head ramming action feature there for your Stygimoloch. As you lead down, we continue to have the really nice greens. I actually am a massive fan of the greenish tones used on the body. It almost looks like there might be a slight hint of a brown, or maybe even a slightly different shade of green for the legs compared to the body. But as you lead back, you can see we pick up more of that dark brown that starts at the bottom of the neck and then starts to kind of taper away as you lead out there toward the tail. And again, that's really about it. Kind of stripes down along the side here of the figure as well. As we already saw, we took a look at the arm articulation and everything. No paintwork or anything up there. The leg articulation is going to be the same. Again, just forward and back, not really out away from the body. And then you also have a swivel tail. for the Stygimoloch. The coloration of the tail must be a part of the, again, the way the paint sits on the material. Like the material of the body is a harder material. The legs are kind of more bendable. So it just has a slightly different shade of green, I think, to it compared to the primary body. But it is a really cool version of a Stygimoloch. Painted nails would have been a nice plus for this one, or even some coloration on the underside. But I'm actually still a pretty big fan of this very cool looking greenish version of the Stygimoloch. And then we've got the Carnotaurus, and the Carnotaurus again is the same Carnotaurus we had previously in the Dominion multi-pack that we had that was also available at Target. But now instead of the kind of male coloration, we have pretty much the same colors that we have on the Hammond collection version now on this one. And you can see we again have like the reddish brown for the body. You also have a darker variation of a brown that leads through the course of the face, looking pretty much just like it does on the female Carnotaurus versions in the films and everything, except we do have the chip horn, which is technically part of the one male that we see, but we have it on this version here. You can see the eye is painted with a yellow, given a black pupil. Of course, we have articulation. You can see the teeth are painted with kind of like a light yellowish tone, and then we've got a pinkish tone for the inside of the mouth as well. Nice kind of a gloss coat in there. And the upper side is basically just the reddish brown that we have for the primary body color, so no real paint difference as far as that goes. We don't have the pinkish tone. We do have the pinkish tone here on the skin stretching, though, on the inside of the mouth. You can see a brownish tone for the lower jaw that leads down into the neck. You can also see a pretty massive transition there. It's a smooth transition, but you just have more on this area as far as that brownish tone that I was kind of expecting, like more than you see down here. As you lead down, though, you can see the arms are overtaken with that brownish tone, and we continue to have that lead along, but it kind of transitions here away as you lead toward the lower part of the stomach down from the chest. We still have the reddish brown for the primary body, and then again that darker brown that really nicely patterns through. It is really smooth as far as the application of the paint goes, and you see more of that again as you lead down here, leading through the course of the legs. And we do actually have painted nails for the Carnotaurus, which is really nice. You've got a nice kind of a glossy dark variation of a brown. No dew claw paint as per usual, and it's nice actually for once that we don't have paint on the fingernails of the Carnotaurus, because Carnotaurus didn't actually have fingernails, so they somehow made it look better by not painting those. But in another freak situation, we actually have paint that runs out into the tail a little bit on this Carnotaurus, which is nice. Tapers away as you start to lead out, but I mean, that's a little bit further than you usually get from Mattel for a figure like this. Of course, the articulation elsewhere, you have the neck articulation that is up and down and can swivel. You have arm articulation forward and back and out away from the body. You also have leg articulation forward and back and out away from the body, and then you also have a swivel tail. So pretty much your standard, and I would think, if I recall correctly, the same articulation we had on this figure last time. And then as far as the fax app code goes, there we go. Oop, I'm on the wrong side. There is the code if you would like to add the Carnotaurus to your collection. And now that I think about it, I don't think I gave you guys the Stygimoloch code, so we'll grab that here in a minute. But I think the Carnotaurus actually looks really, really nice. And here is the Stygimoloch code again, since I believe I missed that just a moment ago. And then, of course, the final piece of the puzzle would be Darius. And you can see he looks pretty good. You know, I haven't seen too much when it comes to the trailers or anything. I've been kind of trying to avoid it for the most part. I mean, I did watch them, but only once. It's not like some other things where I'll obsess over the trailer and analyze it and everything. I haven't been watching too much of it because I really want to be surprised with the show. But from what I can recall, I think Darius looks pretty good, pretty reminiscent to what we see in the show as far as what I've seen in the trailer. We've got the eyes painted, the eyebrows are painted, and you can also see his hair is painted nicely with a dark black, and it's also nicely sculpted, which is really cool. We do have neck articulation, which can completely swivel around and also goes forward and back a little bit. Yeah, so you can see him kind of shaking his head right there. As you lead down, he is wearing a blue shirt, which looks really nice. Again, you can see some nice wrinkles and stuff throughout. We also have arm articulation out away from the body and forward and back, as well as elbow articulation, which can also swivel. So pretty much all your standard articulation. When it comes to a Mattel human being, as you lead down, you can see a little split there in the stomach region, so we can swivel his stomach. As you lead down, you again have some nicely sculpted pants, all sorts of really nice creases and stuff. I always love how much realism Mattel puts into the sculpting of the clothes of any of their human beings. Like, they're always really highly detailed when it comes to the clothing, and you can see, of course, the same articulation forward and back. Kind of a little limited. There we go. It has to kind of like go out away from the body to go back. A little bit more limited than I've seen in other Mattel figures when it comes to the way that the articulation works in the hip area. But then again, you also have the knee articulation, forward and back, and can also swivel. And then you lead down into the shoes, which are really nicely sculpted, nicely painted as well. You can see we actually have a little variation of color, and the laces are painted, which is actually pretty impressive because you don't see that too often from a Mattel human. Most times the feet are completely, and the shoes and boots or whatever are completely ignored, but we do have a little extra paintwork this time. And of course we also have the weapon here that sports a sort of like a net, kind of a gimmick, I guess, to capture one of our dinosaurs here. And you also have a button, which we will press here in just a moment. But that's just a really fun extra to go with a pretty darn fun set. As far as our little weapon goes here, we'll try to shoot our Stygimoloch in the face with it. And it went flying out of here. So obviously the net is basically just like this little net kind of hanging off of a small missile. You're never going to actually be able to net anything with this, but it does seem to shoot out of the missile really quite nicely. Definitely has some impressive impact as well, as you can see right there. So again, just a fun extra to include when it comes to some playability with the set. Now, I don't feel like we really need many size comparisons or measurements or anything like that, especially because most of these figures we've already had previous times in different releases. But here's a size comparison with Darius and Robert Muldoon. You can see Darius is slightly smaller than Muldoon, but not by very much at all. In fact, we can go ahead and get a measurement, I guess, on Darius for his height. You're looking at a little over 3.5 inches, closing in on 3 3/4, but not quite there, or maybe a hair under 9.5 centimeters. And then for the others, there is the current Stygimoloch, the new version with the battle damage version, which you can very clearly see those two are the same size, as well as the previous Carnotaurus with the new version of the Carnotaurus, yet again showing you that they are definitely the same figure, just different paint apps. And then the new Dimorphodon next to the older Dimorphodon, which very clearly the newer version is definitely a good bit larger. I guess that means we can measure the new Dimorphodon just because it is a little bit different in size compared to the older versions. So it's hard to get this one actually to stand for some reason, because the wings are just consistently in the way. If we go for a wingspan, the wings would be a lot larger if they weren't kind of curved in. You were looking at about 7.5 inches or 19 centimeters. And then for a height length for the Dimorphodon, about 6.25 inches or 16 centimeters in size. So I think that's really about all we need when it comes to comparisons. So this is a pretty fun set. When it comes to these random Chaos Theory sets with the human figures included and then like one random dinosaur, I would say this one is probably the one I was most anticipating, of course, because of the Carnotaurus. But overall, I feel like, it's nice because it's not like the Carnotaurus is the only thing I'm excited about this time around. I kind of thought going into this that would be the case. I thought I would think everything else was okay, but the Carnotaurus, of course, was the star of the show, which I would still say the Carno is the star of the show. But it is nice to see that the Stygimoloch is a really cool version as far as the paint apps go. I'm a big fan of the tones of color used on this one, and overall I think it's probably one of the nicest looking Stygimolochs that we've had from the very beginning of the Mattel line, way back with Fallen Kingdom. I think it's just really, really nice looking as far as the tones of color used on it. Nothing crazy impressive when it comes to like the patterning or the amount of paint used, but it's just a really nice looking version. The Dimorphodon as well is really cool because it's a brand new figure, a good bit larger than the older ones, and very nicely sculpted. Decent paint apps, nothing really to write home about there, but it is a pretty cool Dimorphodon just because it is a new sculpted version, which I would imagine this is probably the same sculpt sculpt that you'll get when it comes to the Danger Pack version that's coming out. And then, of course, the Carnotaurus is gorgeous, I think, honestly. It's probably, it's always actually been one of my favorite versions of the Carnotaurus from Mattel. There's just something that I really like about this smaller version that they released, but with the female colors on it as well, especially colors that kind of resemble almost the Hammond Collection version. It is just a really nice looking interpretation of the Carnotaurus yet again from Mattel, and I would say definitely one of my favorites that they've released so far, of course, outside of like the Hammond Collection version. But then you also have Darius himself, which looks really good, and it is nice to now have the older version of Darius as well as that really cool weapon. And like I said, I think Darius looks pretty much just like he does from what I've seen so far when it comes to the previews for the show. He looks pretty spot on here. So overall, a very cool set. Definitely a set worth picking up. This one has been going in and out of stock on Target.com over the last couple of days, so I will get the link included in the description, and of course just keep checking back, and it should pop back into stock at some point soon. It was out of stock last I checked, but it should be back in stock at some point soon again. It just keeps going in and out as time goes on. So make sure you grab this set, and of course like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.